You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audio book club.
Thanks for checking out today's episode of Graphic Novel Explorers Club. I'm one of your hosts, Johnny. I'm joined by
Francis.
And Dennis.
Today we're discussing Batman Year One by Frank Miller and artist Dave, and I'm going to butcher your last name. I'm sorry, David. Mazzucchelli. You should do this, Francis. You're the Italian. You should know how to.
You said it good.
Mazzucchelli. Is that
the Tomorrow? You went to Mario.
That's the only thing I can do. We hope you've already read today's title because all three of us have read the book. So beware, spoilers ahead. We'd love for you to share your opinion and thoughts with us. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at GN Explorers Club. Leave a comment on our Facebook page or email us at gnexplorersclub@gmail.com. Graphic Novel Explorers Club is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever podcasts are available. All right. So the Batman Year One. This book came out
mid-80s,
86.
Yeah. So this followed up DC's big movement where they felt that their timelines and stories were way too convoluted. So they had the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where different worlds, different Earths met each other. Different Supermans met each other. Different Batmans met
and
each
where
other.
One of the most tragic was
Supergirl.
Well, Supergirl and then Flash died,
yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
They left existence.
Exactly. And so it was a story method to kind of unconvolute things. So instead of having a whole bunch of Earths, they were just going to have one Earth, which actually they kind of went back on and they've revisited like a bajillion times.
Well, I was going to say, and they've since convoluted their own universe again, repeatedly, numerous times.
Part of the movement was to sort of reboot and update the origins of various superheroes. One of the ones that I loved personally at this time period, and it was a good entry point, was Man of Steel by John Byrne. And so it kind of updated Superman's look, updated his parents from looking like that weird like 1950s costumes to like these weird sleek robes. It was very 80s though. It was very contemporary. So
Superman had a little bit of a mullet, right?
Yeah, he did, and Lois Lane wore a very 80s outfit, etc. But whatever. So this book was part of that movement as well. They integrated into the normal serialized Batman series. Originally, it was going to be a standalone comic by Frank Miller.
Yeah, like this is, from my understanding, Batman Year One and Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns,
right,
are both by Frank Miller, are the bookends of. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is his end and maybe this is his beginning. We don't really, right. It's not for sure. Mm-hmm. Eventually it became part of the reality.
Although it should note that unlike Returns, Frank Miller actually didn't do the art, which I'm actually okay with.
I'm jumping into the end of our podcast. One of my favorite illustrated comic books ever. I 110% love agree. The illustration style in this.
I'm very glad Frank Miller did not illustrate it.
The line work in this is so beautiful. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Can we back up? What do you mean the Flash died?
So Barry Allen sacrificed himself. My understanding, right? In the Infinite.
He was running back in time to warn everyone. No, he was running around this device to stop it. Basically. Reversing its polarity or whatever. So he ended up going back in time, and it explains why the Flash like would appear in different comics suddenly and would disappear. Like people were, what the fuck's going on? So he was going to reverse this machine, but he was slowly dying, and he eventually just disappeared from existence. And he actually disappeared for quite a bit of time, Barry Allen.
Yeah.
And then Kid Flash became the main Flash.
Wally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like 5 or 6 different Flashes.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
You remember Flashpoint, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering. I was like, wait.
Yeah. And then Supergirl got folded into another Supergirl, right? Or did she?
It gets confusing. So Supergirl ended up sacrificing herself by trying to beat out the Anti-Monitor, and she just basically upright and died. But her origin gets weirded out because it depends on what version you're looking at. Some cases she's called Power Girl, and that's a different universe version. It's all convoluted.
Yeah. Well, so let's jump into, now that we've convoluted our own universe.
Anyway, this was an attempt to basically retell the origin of Batman, which I found very refreshing.
Yeah. So it's let me backtrack here a little bit. So the story takes place within a year, basically. It encapsulates literally Batman's first year of Batmaning. It starts off with Jim Gordon, who's a lieutenant, coming to Gotham, and he comes in by train, and he's talking about how bad it is, and you're also introduced to a returning Bruce Wayne coming in by airplane. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but Jim Gordon's dialogue is print, and Bruce Wayne's is cursive,
right?
Which kind of shows his like the influential life he's had, this plush life, even though he chose not to.
For listeners who are still young, cursive is a form of handwriting that
Right.
used to be taught in school for
Yes.
upper, like it was a distinction. Like
Once you hit like fourth grade,
This is before text.
Right.
I forgot kids don't learn cursive anymore. It's almost told. I feel like Jim Gordon's almost the main character
For sure.
And Bruce Wayne is not quite he already knows what's going on in town, and like the reader is seeing things through Jim Gordon's eyes because he's new to all of Gotham and just the crime that's going on, the corruption within the police and the government and the mayor's office.
And he knows that kind of going in. That's the impression that I got. Like he kind of knows what he's going into.
But I don't think he knows how bad it is, though.
And I don't know why he's coming.
Well, it's interesting because it sounds like he has.
It sounds like he was involved in some sort in Chicago. He had some sort of problem where the media something happened, and the only reason he didn't entirely lose his job was because the media didn't find out about it.
It seemed like to me though he had a history of finding dirty cops.
Oh, see, I didn't get that impression. I got he got mixed up in something, and it was like either you leave or you quit. Because the only reason you're not fired is because the media didn't find out. I
really did like the take where he's the new guy in town, and it's a great way to introduce New Gotham and exactly what he's walking into, kind of a training day.
And he's brought in on a train that's just packed with people. He's met by Flass, this cop named Flass, who immediately shows Jim Gordon how we do things in this town. Is there's a couple punk kids not really doing anything, just hanging out, probably shooting dice or something like that. And Flass gets out and starts shaking the one kid down and beats him up and throws him in a garbage can. And Jim Gordon somewhat looks kind of nerdy. He's got glasses and a mustache. He doesn't look like he'd handle himself, but you get to see a lot of internal thoughts from the characters, and he's already sizing Flass up. He's like, this guy has military training, but he doesn't have the same level I do, and he's starting to memorize his moves and breaking down like, okay, when the time comes, I'll be able to handle this guy. At the same time, Bruce Wayne flies in by airplane, and it's implied he hasn't been in town for 13 years, I think it was.
This is what this reminded me of when Bruce Wayne flies in. He's Prince Harry. He is the media frenzy du jour. And they even say like the richest bachelor, he's back. And I think probably too because the marriage right now, there's the frenzy again. But that's really, I was like, oh, he's like the Prince Harry of Gotham City. He's the golden boy. Everybody loves him. He kind of has like, he's kind of a playa. Yeah, but totally. And he was, I think they said he's only 25. Which surprised
he's young.
Me. I always thought Batman was older.
Well, and normally he is. And for people who don't read comic books, prior to this, Batman was never, it's almost like Michael Keaton's Batman. It always started with him being an experienced guy who knows what he's doing. And that was one of the things that was really different about this book was you get to see him he makes a ton of mistakes, but you get to see him making those mistakes as someone just starting out in their quote unquote career.
And what I appreciate too about this is that it focuses on the year one of him in Gotham, as opposed to the whole training montage of him learning
gonna
like magic.
Get a montage.
Exactly. Learning how to do karate and all this kind of stuff. I like that he's sort of like, well, I've done my training, so I'm kind of ready to take care of things.
Ready to do this. And the media are there at the airport when he arrives, but he's internalizing, I need to do something. I'm back in my hometown. I've got all this training and experience. I need to utilize this somehow. So it does kind of show a quick montage of him chopping. This was one part of the book I was like, come on, where he like chops a chimney in half and then, and then he kicks a tree. He's like kicking a tree in half. I'm like, nobody's that strong enough to kick a tree.
That's the part that threw you off, Shawnee.
It really did.
Not the part about the bat.
The rest of it, totally believable. Like, you guys haven't had a bat fly into your living room, and then you're like, well, now I have an idea what I can do. How dare you two team up on me like that? How dare you? Quickly, a couple of weeks jump by, and Flass and Jim Gordon are out on patrol, and Flass is starting to tell him, like, hey, the guys are starting to get worried about you because you don't take any bribes. And Jim Gordon's like, hey, I'm not going to say anything, but I'm not going to participate in any of that either. And Bruce Wayne is starting to try and infiltrate into the seedier parts of Gotham. He's putting on fake makeup, like scars and stuff like that.
Yeah, I didn't get that part. I thought maybe he was actually cutting his face at first.
Oh, no,
like, what is he doing?
Well, so this is the interesting part, is that at this point, he hasn't formulated Batman. He's formulated his goal in a way.
To stop crime.
But he assumed he was going to just disguise himself and kind of... I know it does look like he was cutting himself, but then why would he cut himself? Because it would be really clear that, hey, you're just Bruce Wayne with a cut. So he
applies a putty,
right?
And then
exactly
makes a scar out of it. And at the same time, or around the same time, Jim Gordon is trying to leave a garage or something like that, and he gets jumped by four guys. They beat him up with bats.
Four cops,
yeah. And then while he's they don't kill him, but they beat him up pretty bad. He hears Flass laughing in the background.
It should be noted too that his wife Barbara is pregnant.
Oh, correct, yeah.
With their son, and
Jimmy Jr.
Right, and they kind of mention it a little bit, so he knows that they're cops.
Yeah, like, hey, we need to see something happen to Barbara. Isn't his wife's name Barbara too?
Well, that's
okay. So this is where I got really confused.
It can be confusing because his wife is Barbara. They later have a daughter named Barbara Gordon.
Oh, that makes sense.
Who was shot in The Killing Joke.
Yeah, so because I remembered this, I was thinking back to The Killing Joke. I was like, wait, I thought Barbara was his daughter, so I didn't even know he had a son. And I was like, unless he married his daughter. It really threw me for a loop for a second. Thank you for clarifying that.
The Gordons don't really venture out too far when they're naming their children. What are we gonna name our son? I don't know, Jim. Oh, sounds good. Yeah. What about our daughter? Barbara.
Yeah.
George Foreman. This is where George Foreman got the idea for his son's names. So Bruce Wayne in disguise is walking through like the red light district, and there's a minor who's a prostitute who offers sex to Bruce Wayne, and he's like, no, I'm not into that. And then this pimp was like, no, that's the wrong guy. He's Vice. Mm-hmm. And it quickly goes downhill from there. He thinks he's a cop. Bruce is trying to tell him he's not a cop. But I'm not interested in sex with kids. And then,
it actually speaks to. It's funny because that also speaks to Bruce's inexperience to actually act well. Like he has the smell of a cop on him. These people like, no, you're not.
You're too clean. Your clothes are too nice. Yeah, you got a scar on your face,
and you're dressed like a vet. But I've seen that before.
Yeah. I know this was a character in the Batman the Animated Series where he regularly would disguise himself as there was a certain name for the character. Isn't like Joe something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that's a persona that he puts on.
Exactly.
Bruce Wayne does. But anyways, he winds up getting in a fight. The young prostitute stabs Bruce Wayne as he's beating up the pimp. And
it should be noted the pimp actually seems to be pretty fast. So Bruce is a little worried. Hey, maybe this guy could actually take me out.
Yeah.
So he takes him out quickly, and he assumes. You assume as a reader too that, look, you're the hero. You've rescued these prostitutes from their horrible pimp, and and then the little younger prostitute ends up stabbing him and basically says, "Let's get him, guys."
Yeah, and there's like 3 or 4 people, and then Selena Kyle, who you don't know this initially. She's got a shaved head and winds up attacking him too, and she's almost as his equal in fighting skills. Like he's like, oh crap, and he's quickly realizing, if I get caught, this is all over from day one. If I get caught or arrested, this is I'm done. The Bruce Wayne, whatever I'm trying to accomplish, my goals are officially done. So cops show up, wind up just shooting him. And I love how the one officer was like, hey, he didn't move, man. And then the other cop who shot him was like, well, he was going to.
Sometimes things never change.
Yeah. So
got silent for a minute.
Yeah. They wind up taking him away. They've got him in the back of a squad car. He breaks the cuffs with his Batman skills.
Yeah.
His training skills. He's not Batman at this time, but just his training skills. Breaks the cuffs, beats the two cops up, crashes the car, and gets away.
Well, and rescues
the cops because the car's about to catch on fire. But he's been pretty seriously injured. He keeps blacking out and not realizing how he got to, from one point to the next point.
Basically, his first mission was terrible.
Yeah. So then he gets in his Porsche and drives away, and he almost runs Jim Gordon off the road. And Jim's going to a poker game to get justice on Flass for what he did.
By the way, I love how they transitioned that. So, I mean, that's kind of, wow, that's such a coincidence. But I love how it transitions
from... Yeah,
the
story now goes from Bruce Wayne, now we're going to follow Jim Gordon.
It's literally like a baton handoff.
Yeah. He waits out all the cops at this poker game until Flass, who's the last one to leave, comes out, and then he follows him, runs him off the road. They both got their guns pulled on each other, and they put their guns away, and Jim throws one of the bats to Flass and is like, let's go.
Well, and what I love about it is he says something to the effect, like, it's been a while since I've had to take out a Green Beret to even things up. He gives Flass the bat to make it fair.
Yeah, beats him up, handcuffs him, and leaves him...
I think leaves him naked.
Yeah.
Leaves him naked. And he even says, he's like, he'll never tell anybody.
Right.
Because
he'll make up some big story.
He doesn't want to admit it. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I love that scene. I was like,
yeah.
Haha.
So this was something I was going to mention. So Jim Gordon had been portrayed as, like, on the Batman 60s show, Batman 66, as a bumbling idiot who had a bad Irish accent, didn't know what he was doing. Prior or to around that time, do you know, Dennis, if he was always kind of portrayed as sort of like...
No, I think that was specifically the TV show.
But it tainted the character for a long time, though, right?
Yeah, it did. But the comics definitely portrayed him as a more serious guy. But I'm not entirely sure it ever went into this kind of depth where, and my knowledge of 70s and 80s Batman in terms of this is kind of hazy. But I'm not sure if you ever got any kind of in-depth background on him. And this really kind of...
To show, like, what a competent person he is.
I mean, the fact that he isn't just a cop, he's actually well-trained military. You see his real moral compass. You see what grounds him, what motivates him, his family.
See, I've only seen the Batman movies, starting with Michael Keaton. God, what was that terrible one? What's his name? The no nipples on the suit one.
The Joel Schumacher movies.
You've seen Batman Begins, though, right? Because this is clearly...
So having no knowledge of Batman except for the movies, I always thought Jim...
He's a competent cop.
Yeah, he's really competent and he means well. And I also always think he knows who Batman is, but they have... Oh, yeah, because the Batlight. They have this understanding. Like, Batman's there to help him. It's like this love-hate relationship. But I never thought he was incompetent or blubbering idiot. I always got he wants the best for Gotham.
I would argue that Michael Keaton, which is almost like a amped up version of the TV show, he's incompetent in that one as well.
Yeah, he's I wouldn't say completely corrupt, but he's definitely very... he's opportunistic. I will go where whatever's easiest is going to get me what I need.
Is this the Gary Oldman one?
That's the Dark Knight.
That's Batman Begins, and that clearly...
Maybe that's I'm getting them mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't keep track of all these Batmans.
No, in the Michael Keaton movies, Gordon was sort of... he was like a politician. He's like, I can just do whatever is needed to keep me in office, kind of.
Yeah, I do like the background story. Because, I don't want to. I don't like Batman. I get tired of Batman. But this was such an interesting take. It was such a different version. And I think, like you said, because it's from someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not spending so much time with Batman here. It's Jim Gordon and then Bruce Wayne as a young man. Yeah, in Gotham.
Gotham and Gordon are clearly the main characters.
So getting back to the story, Bruce Wayne makes it home. Coincidentally, you find out Alfred has been staying in Wayne Manor all these years, and he's got all this training, like combat surgery training. He makes it into the house, and he's just completely defeated, and it's like, I've got the means to do this, but I need a symbol or something to show to put fear into criminals' hearts. And then that's when the bat flies through the window, and he's like, oh, I got my idea.
And that specific visual of the bat flying through the window, that was used in the Keaton one, right?
I think it's been used in all of them. Where I know it was definitely one of the Schumacher ones. Like I think the Val Kilmer one, where
I think you're right.
The strobe lights behind and the bat flies through.
Yeah. What I liked about this scene, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's actually kind of talking to his dead dad,
right?
To be like, I don't know what to do, and then the bats fly in, but I mean, like that's the sign. But this is the first time, from the comic book perspective, anyway, you get any real backstory on Batman, like just besides his parents died and like that struggle, like he just, because a lot of the superhero books, like you just see the superhero sometimes, like this is like the man becoming the bat, and I thought it was interesting. Like I think that's really plausible. As a young adult, when you're struggling, you do want your parents' guidance, and when it's not available, that could be challenging.
And I liked how it was just a slight pivot where you can see his motivation, where, look, I want to clean up Gotham. This is what I'm going to do. And now I was like, God, this is not working out how I thought it was going to. Like, you can imagine whatever training he did, and he's like, I'm going to kick ass. This is going to be awesome. And then suddenly everything goes to shit, and it's like, what am I going to do now?
So then book 2 starts, and it's in April. It's the rainy season, and you get a clear indication of Jim Gordon's commitment to his job and the people that he's serving. There's a hostage situation, and the head of the SWAT team, Brandon, he wants to just start shooting, and there's like several children that this clearly person with a mental illness has hostage, he's not even talking coherently. He's just rambling words. Jim Gordon shows up. He's the lieutenant, and is like, "Hey, I've got jurisdiction, or I've got control of the situation. I've got command of the situation. I'm going in." He leaves his gun behind, and Brandon's like clearly upset that
he's very Rambo. The SWAT guy basically just wants to go in guns blazing, and he has a history of that.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? And there's something I forgot to talk about in book 1 too, is the commissioner that Jim Gordon eventually becomes the commissioner.
The current sitting commissioner.
Yeah, Commissioner Loeb is clearly crooked too, and he's also like has a sit down with Jim and says, "Hey, look, when you don't take a piece of the pie here, we start to get worried." And Jim's like, you hired me because I do my job well, and that's part of what I'm doing. And also he's starting to go after crooked cops too. And
right.
that also, the commissioner is also getting upset about that. And Flass seems to be Commissioner Loeb's right-hand man he's reporting back to the commissioner and saying, hey, people are starting to get upset that he's not taking any payoffs.
And fortunately for Gordon, the media loves him.
Yeah.
So they can't just outright.
This is the scene that really seals. Yeah. So he walks in, leaves his gun behind, and goes in empty-handed to talk to the guy, and winds up getting the jump on this guy who's holding these kids hostage and takes him out. And then after that, that's commissioner starts to realize, like, oh, this guy's kind of untouchable because he's now saved a bunch of kids without firing or shooting anybody. I got the impression from that also is like the people are probably getting tired of this militaristic police force,
for sure,
which is kind of reflective of what's going on in our country today, of people tired of being shot for no reason. Like Bruce Wayne's character was, like, even though he was clearly involved in a fight, he didn't have any reason to be shot, and he was anyway. So you kind of get the impression that the people of Gotham are sick of this too.
Totally.
Jim is starting to feel a lot of guilt also about having his pregnant wife in this town, and he's starting to realize, like, this is no place to raise a kid. He's starting to feel stress on that end of it too. Like, I have a responsibility to my family and keeping them safe.
Yeah, that's props to him too, because I think about what he's going up against, and it's one thing to to go up in a hostage situation and basically almost like a suicide mission. You put down your firearm and put yourself in harm's way. But when you have family involved, when you have someone to take care of at home, it's like, it's admirable and also kind of reckless. And,
much like Batman.
Right. And then we see this later. It's like, to fight the corruption, and really that's kind of why superheroes have secret identities, right?
Yeah.
Because you put your loved ones in harm's way because people know that's your weak point.
Like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Mary
exactly.
Jane and Aunt
May.
Aunt May, always in harm's way. So then we get to see the first real appearance of Batman. He, I have to say, like, I know modern Batman, like there's Batman Incorporated where there's like Batmans all throughout the world.
Right.
And he's taking on Ra's al Ghul and, just saving the people of Gotham from the Joker, poisoning stuff. And this one, his first case as Batman are 3 people stealing a television on a fireway. It just seems it's so minor, and the fact that they almost took him out. Yeah, it does. Again, his second attempt at fighting crime does not go well. He gets the drop on him, and one of the 3 men gets or I should say young man. They're like young men. They're like teenagers, late teens. Gets so scared he falls off the fire banister. Batman catches him by the foot, and his friends, the 2 other people, start beating the shit out of Batman.
And use this as an opportunity to basically take Batman out.
Yeah. Well, they're initially shocked and scared at the sight of him.
Right, because the costume does work.
Yeah. And just having someone jump in on you like that. But he winds up taking him out, and he realizes, like, oh, man, if I let go of this kid, he's going to die. It's like a 20-second drop.
Right.
I just thought it was hilarious that his first thing was just so trivial, like a television.
Well, and my favorite shot, one of my favorite shots of the whole book is actually he's finished with the fight and he's like really tired
on top of all of them.
Right, like they're knocked out, but he doesn't look triumphant or like the Dark Knight at all. He's just like, Jesus, how did I fucking do this?
Yeah, this could have gone so wrong. I think it's like the theme of this book is like he makes so many mistakes.
Right,
he shot multiple times in his first year as Batman. Right. He's been shot 3 or 4 times.
I love that aspect of this book so far, is that he's fallible. He's not
competent.
I'm Batman.
Yeah.
He's very much I'm Batman.
Yeah. I think this is how you do it. So it skips from April to May, and Jim Gordon's running a
debriefing.
For the shift coming on. They're talking about Batman's being sighted, and they've got all these different drawings of him. And Flass is once again beat up. And when I read that, I was like, oh, he got Jim Gordon fucked him up that bad. Like he's still hurt. Come to find out, he tells a story of Flass tells a story of how he was busting some drug dealers who had jumped him. Come to find out, really just Batman got the drop on all of them and beat the shit out of everybody, including Flass.
Right. So that's the problem that some of the cops are having now, is that Batman's slowly working his way up the chain from small-time people to larger organizations and any corrupt cops that are in the way.
Yeah, it's all fair game.
So, yeah, I did like the parallel where it basically shows what really happened, which is Flass basically taking a payout, but his words are completely opposite.
Yeah, and it's almost...
I think I started getting a little bit confused at this part.
At this scene.
Yeah.
And he does tell almost like supernatural. Things were flying out of his hands. He was 8 feet tall. He's like really exaggerating the story, which if if someone came out of the shadows and started doing stuff, you would not perceive it as it actually happened.
Right.
The cops talk about it all the time where witnesses aren't
reliable.
Completely reliable because they will remember things the wrong way. But cut to a scene where it's at a big mansion. It's Commissioner Loeb and all these other rich and highly influential people of Gotham having a dinner, and they're all getting upset about, hey, we're starting to be impacted by the things that Batman's doing. You need to catch him. And Commissioner Loeb is saying, we've got a group together that are, led by Lieutenant Gordon, and they'll catch him. Don't worry about it. And then Batman, it's cool. I like this scene a lot because it shows him prepping for the theatrics of what he needs to do to scare these people. He's tilting lights a certain way. He's getting a grenade ready, like a smoke grenade. He's getting all the stuff ready, and then cuts the lights as someone's
lighting some sort of dinner.
Yeah, like a
fire.
flambe or something like that. They're about to light it on fire, and right then he smashes through the window, turns the lights out, and tells him basically like, "You've been feasting on Gotham, and this ends tonight."
I like to think that he's like at home, like a comic, trying to figure out like the best line. Your time is up. No, wait. You've been feasting, like practicing the best line to give these guys.
He says, "You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit. Your feast is nearly over. From this moment on, none of you are safe." And then he puts the light. He flushes or tamps the fire out.
You must have found out what they were having for dinner too, because that wouldn't have been effective.
For some reason, up until Batman actually said that line and crashed, this really reminded me of Fight Club, the start of Fight Club, when they're like kind of tainting the food at the restaurants and the caterers, and he starts kind of like weaving into high society. I was like, oh, and I know this was written before that, but that's a little bit of what it reminded me of, because they even had like the waiters in the jacket with the food. I was like, did they do something to that food?
We're also introduced to a female police officer that seems to be Jim Gordon's right hand
partner.
Yeah, like also on this task force to catch Batman, and we're seeing that they're starting to set the police are trying to set traps to catch him. So this female officer she's walking around in the completely wrong part of town, and Batman sees that right away. He's like, no, I'm not falling for this. And they set up a thing where she gets mugged, and
her scream is a little too perfect.
Yeah, and he can tell like, oh, the bump sitting over there has got a radio. So he's onto their attempts to try and catch him. We're also introduced to a scene where Jim Gordon goes to
Harvey Dent
before he's Two-Face.
Oh, that's Two-Face?
Yeah, Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face.
Okay.
So Harvey Dent is clearly not corrupt.
Well, he's not corrupt, but Jim Gordon goes to him and starts questioning him, and Harvey Dent is like, "Why are you asking me these questions?" And he goes, "Well, because I just wanted to make sure you're not Batman. You're pretty tough on crime.
He's physically fit.
Yeah, you're physically fit. You seem to fit some of the profiles that would make a Batman." And you start to see that they're beginning to trust each other, Dent and Gordon. Well, Gordon leaves, and there's Batman behind the desk.
So how are Batman and Dent friends right now? And how does Dent know about Batman?
I think it's never shown. But I think is Batman realizes Harvey Dent, because it's mentioned at different times in the book that Harvey Dent's cases have gotten thrown out, or witnesses have gone missing.
That's right.
Like his cases
that Harvey Dent wants to clean up Gotham.
So Batman probably approached him.
Yeah, because this seemed really out of place for me all of a sudden. I was like, wait, Batman is trusting somebody. I was like, and I didn't know the Two-Face reference, so that makes more sense.
So before Commissioner Gordon becomes Commissioner Gordon, this is basically Batman's confidant and way in.
Someone he trusts. Jim Gordon and the female police officer whose name escapes me at the moment, so I'm just going to keep calling her female police officer. They're starting to flirt with each other and seem to be sort of having like a emotional tryst. You know, like they're
Essen, I think is her name.
What's that?
Essen, yeah,
that's correct. They're driving along, and Batman's following Gordon and her from upon high, and there's a truck or like a delivery van out of control, just coincidentally just happens.
Right.
And this homeless woman's about to be hit by the vehicle, and Batman saves her. Jim Gordon does a Dukes of Hazzard, and climbs out of his car and tries to get the steering wheel. It flips over. Gordon gets knocked out, and when he comes to, Essen has her gun drawn on Batman. She turns to look at Jim to say, "Are you okay?" When she does, Batman knocks the gun out of her hand, starts to run away, and Essen winds up shooting him in the leg as he's trying to escape. He runs into a warehouse. This is where I feel like Batman is born, here about what happens. Frankie, you look like you had a question that you wanted to ask for a moment there.
this is so off topic, but as soon as Dennis brought the name, what's her name again?
Essen.
And I didn't get this when I was reading it. It made me think of the green shampoo bottle by Clairol. And the name of the shampoo is Essence. And it was a drawing of this woman. She had long hair and she's like in the water and she has a crown of flowers on her head. And I was like, oh, I wonder if like that's where he got her name, is from the Clairol shampoo bottle. Because she was pretty hot stuff in the 70s, let me tell you. And I remember having that green shampoo. It's a clear bottle, and the shampoo was green, and it didn't come with conditioner, or my mom didn't buy it. I don't know why. It was so weird, but it was the bright green bottle.
People didn't have conditioner back then.
Yeah, and that just made me think. I was like, oh, I wonder if she's after the shampoo. Of course, she's probably not, but sorry. That's where my mind's at right now.
So thank you for Essen Shampoo for sponsoring the podcast. Now back to
Clairol.
1970s Clairol shampoo.
It was good stuff.
Calgon, take me away.
Oh god, those commercials used to scare the hell out of me
It was
when I was a
creepy,
kid.
right?
Yeah. They would have this like woman in the middle of the screen, and then there'd be like car traffic honking, a screaming baby, her husband coming home angry, some like a dispute in the grocery store, clearly before women were, in the workforce, I guess, or even considered to be in the workforce. And then it would start swirling, and then she would stop. She would scream, "Stop, Calgon, take me away." And it would just freak me out when I was a little kid. I was like, what the fuck is
I thought it was like a cult thing, to be honest.
Anyways, so Batman, returning to the story, has been shot in the thigh, and
the police are chasing him now. They're cornered him into a building.
They show up. He smashes through the window of this abandoned building, and as soon as he's in there, Gordon starts to hear a helicopter coming in the distance, and he's like, no.
Right, so the SWAT team guy has authorized some sort of fireball.
It's a Moab, the mother of all bombs, gets dropped on this building, and
they claim it's been cleared. Like, how do you clear a building without even going into it?
Come to find out, it's not. There's like several homeless people that get burnt up in this explosion. Batman survives it, and the SWAT team comes in. He's immediately, when the explosion goes off, his utility belt becomes useless because he's got thermite in it, and it starts catching on fire, so he has to abandon his utility belt. But being the highly skilled and trained person that he is, he's got picks and darts and all sorts of stuff hidden. He said in the gloves, his cape, his boots, his cowl. He's got stuff hidden everywhere.
Is this where the cat survived?
Yes.
That's where he saves the cat. I thought that when I read that, I was like, oh, this is Francis's favorite part.
I was like, oh. I was like.
You get to see the young prostitute that attacked Bruce Wayne.
She's a friend of Selena Kyle.
Selena Kyle already has a bunch of cats.
Right.
She's like, you got to look at this. There's like an explosion going off down. So people start coming down to see what's going on. And then the SWAT team goes into the building, and
they're pretty ready to shoot to kill.
Yeah, there's several of them, and Bruce Wayne, or Batman, I should say, starts taking them out one by one.
Well, what I like too is that he found some sort of trap door, and he picked the lock, and you assume he went down there. The cops, when they come in, they're like, "Oh, we know he's down there. He probably survived." And like, "Oh, would Batman really trap himself?" But then it turns out he allowed some of the cops to go down there as a trap. And then
climbs up a chimney that's been exposed and starts taking them out one by one. Then when they're down there, he drops a giant piece of timber support beam on top of the trap door, so now they can't go back up. And then he starts dropping smoke bombs and other like tear gas down there. And then he's been there for so long, he starts to realize, oh shit, like my worst enemy's showing up, the sun, like it's starting to become sunlight. More SWAT team comes in, and this is where he saves the cat. And then
I thought, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I thought like the cat was trying to help him, like lead him.
No, I thought the cat was actually going to expose him.
That's what I thought too.
Maybe,
and so he had like some sort of device that basically, or some.
That
he did
sounds
something.
more like a cat. Cats are a-holes.
Yeah, they're a-holes. Well, that's what happens. The cat screams, and in fact, he even says Siamese, because Siamese are the assholes of all asshole cats. But anyways,
you, Batman.
They start they start shooting at the cat, and he takes out even more of them. He says like, "Oh I've spent all the money on this device." Actually, he's like, "If I had all the money in the world and time, I could do this." He's like, "Luckily, I have all the money and time in the world."
Right.
So I did make this thing, and it's this little device in the heel of his boot, which they used in Batman Begin.
Right.
He turns it on, but at this point you don't know what it is.
He starts explaining a little bit,
Yeah.
and then you're like, "What? I don't know what's going on." But yeah,
and then he is down to like a dart gun with 3 darts. That's it. So he takes out one of the cops, Brennan actually, and then the rest of them start shooting at him. They shoot at him so much that he's hiding behind this pillar, and they basically mow through the pillar, and he uses it to his advantage. He's shot again though when this happens. He gets shot in the right arm. They are shooting so much at this support column that he winds up kicking it onto them and causes a cave in on these SWAT team cops. At that moment, oh no, I'm sorry. He doesn't take out Brennan. He doesn't take him out with the dart. Brennan's one of the last cops left. The crowd starts to hear this like sound coming. Brennan gets kicked by Batman through the window so hard that he smashes through the wall, and Batman's allowed outside. But at the same time, all these bats have been attracted to this device in Batman's boot.
Also, I should note this is probably Francis's favorite line. When he kicks the cop through the wall before he kicks him, he says, "You are the one who tried to shoot the cat."
That was my favorite line. Can we just do the spoiler right now?
Yeah, go for it.
It becomes apparent now. It's becoming apparent. Selena, is that her name?
Yeah. Selena.
Yeah, she's Catwoman.
Yes.
And I'm really upset because I have surrounded myself with cats since I was a little girl, and I have yet to become Catwoman. And I'm like, this is so unfair. Like,
do you have combat training? Martial arts
I was
training?
in the army.
Yeah, but for like a month.
I will also note that those cats are unnaturally friendly. Like, they're all hanging around her like they actually care about her.
Okay, but here's the thing. When you take care of a cat and you're actually nice to the cat, it will love you.
Yeah, Chester loves Sasha.
Yeah,
he's always, if Sasha comes home from work, he's on her lap the whole evening.
Oh, okay.
See,
I'm just used to the cat Chester when he's around Johnny.
Because I push him away.
But you are great. That was my favorite line.
So then they start to, they being Jim Gordon and Essen, are like, okay, we need to talk to Bruce Wayne. And then coincidentally, he was over in the Swiss Alps during this entire incident, and he's going to be there for we don't know how long. Come to find out, Bruce Wayne had used his money and influence to get people to lie for him and speak on the phone and say they were him. Essen and Jim Gordon finally kiss.
No,
they do more than that.
Yeah.
I don't think they have sex.
They do. And Barbara, they end up going to family therapy. Like, he confesses to Barbara.
Yeah, but I think I don't think they have
an affair.
Really? You think they had sex? But I don't think they did.
My only problem, I wouldn't say a problem. My only thing about this portion of the story was I honestly didn't know what kind of cop Essen was. I wasn't sure if she was
a dirty cop or a good cop.
Right. And trying to basically entrap Gordon for the mayor.
Well, so we're going to jump ahead because we're on the topic.
Yeah.
Commissioner Loeb shows these photos because they wind up kissing again in the office.
They end up fucking. Excuse my language.
Oh my God, Francis! This is not that kind of.
I know. I was under the impression. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead.
Interrupt you. Yeah.
So Commissioner Loeb shows Jim photos of like, hey, we got photos of you guys kissing. You better start towing the line, or your wife's gonna find out. So, do you think she was there to set him up? Or do you think they actually had like an intimate romantic relationship?
Go ahead, and then I'll say.
I think it was at that point that I realized that she wasn't there to set him up because she put in a transfer. Okay. It's never seen where she actively wants to leave.
Yeah.
Because she's upset because because he gave her like a bracelet. She wants to give it back. Maybe your wife would like it, kind of thing. So it sounds like she was really in it. Like, she was actually a good cop, surprisingly enough. Like Gordon.
And romantically interested.
So, back to my point. This proves that they had an affair. If someone came to you and was like, oh, I have pictures of you kissing someone, you better come clean to your wife. I'm like, oh, golly gee, I better. Like, I think they had pictures of them doing more. But this is why I don't think she's a dirty cop also. Mm-hmm. And this is how affairs happen. People go, oh, I don't know. It just happened. He said, like, he started thinking about her more and more. They started going to the coffee shop every night. Like, they don't just happen. You put yourself in the situation and you start, and he starts, and I've heard this a lot from cops, and you might have some perspective because of your mom. a lot of cops, like, they don't want to go home and tell their spouse what they've dealt with because it's so horrible. Like, they try to kind of shelter that, and they really try to separate their professional and their personal life.
Yeah.
But he's turning more and more toward her and less to his wife.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
They have shared trauma.
Yeah.
And so they're
and stress and
everything. So they're able to basically be in the shit together. And so that kind of creates this weird bond.
And there's this heartbreaking scene. The wife, like, she's pregnant, but she, like, makes dinner and she's, like, rubbing his back. Like, she's really trying to, like, be a good wife.
Yeah.
And then the phone rings. Like, she's doing everything she can to, like, get it on with her husband. And nope, the police are going to, like, stop it.
Well, and then he basically, to his credit, he realizes, look, I have to tell her what happened because I can't.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So Selena Kyle she makes a costume and starts going out at night too. But her thing is like, I'm going to steal from the Carmine, or what's his name? Carmone, whatever.
I forget their name.
Ask something about Selena?
Yeah.
Are you under the impression, based on the drawings, that she's black?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So what I like about the comic book Selena versus the movie versions, in the movie versions, they all have like this long flowing hair, and she has like a shaved head.
Yeah. She's very like punk rock.
And to me, she almost seemed, the way that she was drawn, to me, she's ethnically ambiguous, which, like, I don't think she's Caucasian. I could be wrong though, based on the other comic books, but but there's something about her that I really liked in the comic books versus the movies. I can't pinpoint it, but it's just a different.
She seems to be very my impression that I get from this is like she's almost nihilistic and doesn't, like, she's clearly a prostitute, and I think I think she's like tired of men. I think that's something I picked up from this is she's like, fuck men, I'm gonna go out and fuck some shit up.
Yeah, because Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, which I'm really familiar with, like, she was like this little mousy woman, and she, and then like the cat saved her and stuff. But Selena doesn't need saving in this one. Like, she's out for like revenge, I think. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, she's just very fed up, and I liked it. Yeah,
and I think even Bruce Wayne / Batman remarks when he fought her the first time that she knows karate.
Yeah, she knows a lot of stuff. So, so get back into the story here. You come to find out a drug dealer, a high up drug dealer, has been arrested, and he's got dirt on Flass. His attorney is trying to tell him, like, keep your shit straight. We're gonna go to court, but you're not gonna say shit about anybody, because if you do, you're dead and I'm dead. So keep your mouth shut. And the guy's like doing coke. They've got him up in a witness protection hotel room. Well, Batman makes his way up there and starts choking the guy out. It's basically like, you're going to testify, which, if this had come out in court that under duress you were told to testify, it would automatically be thrown out. He goes to testify, and come to find out that he's been poisoned. His prison food has been poisoned, this criminal. He's going to testify, and then against Flass, and then this is when Commissioner Loeb tells Gordon, you can't let this go to trial. You need to drop all the charges because Flass is a friend of mine, really, because he's got dirt. And this is when he shows the photos to say, hey, look, we've got dirt on you. So then James Gordon and his wife, for some reason, his wife goes with him because Bruce Wayne's back in town. So they go out to talk to Bruce Wayne about possibly being Batman. And he plays the playboy douchebag very well.
He's got a model.
And
that is weird that he brought his wife. Why didn't Gordon bring his pregnant wife to interview a playboy?
Okay, if this was Prince Harry, I'd want to go.
You know what?
Like,
she probably was like, "Oh, you're going to Bruce Wayne Manor?
Yeah.
I want to go. You're going to show me a nice house.
I'm gonna take hella selfies."
You're probably right. She probably asked to come along.
She's got her Polaroids with her because this is the 80s.
And maybe this is part of the therapy that they started. Like, maybe he's trying to like.
It hasn't got to the therapy yet.
Oh, sorry, I made some spoiling.
Yeah.
They go to therapy.
Well, they go to therapy, but we find out why right now. So she's like, maybe he brought her along to be like, what's your feel? Because he asked her, like, what do you think of him? She's like, well, he's kind of a douchebag, like, basically. And he's like, well, he may be playing a douchebag, but I think Jim Gordon's like, this guy might be Batman. Because he says, if someone's willing to go to these extremes to stop criminals, why wouldn't he make himself look like a total tool? And so I think he's like, oh, maybe this guy's a Batman. And he's talking about secrets, like if he's got secrets, and then that's when he's like, speaking of secrets, I got to tell you something. Cut to a few days later, and his wife gets a call, and she's like, "Don't call here anymore. I already know about the affair he told me." So,
did she say affair?
No. She says, "Yes, sir. I know about Sergeant Essen. Please don't bother me again."
Right.
So,
I still think they wouldn't go through all that trouble just for a kiss.
Yeah.
I don't know. Multiple. If you're having an emotional affair and you start making out with someone, I would feel terrible if I did that to Sasha. Like, even that level would be pretty.
So what you're saying is you're not going to tell her about us?
Yeah, she doesn't know about us. Well, now she does. But
damn it.
No, actually, she doesn't listen to this. So
awesome.
She'll never know. Francis, you're not going to say anything.
Because we have photos
about our
of you and your cat.
Torrid love affair. Carmine, that's it. Not Carmoni. Carmine. We get a scene of Batman using his sail air wing.
Right. Well, this is pre, like, I'm going to have a jet.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a glider.
He doesn't have the Batmobile yet, huh?
Nope.
No.
Okay. I just realized
He
that.
just has
it's missing from here.
his Porsche.
It's just his glider.
Just his Porsche, that poor guy.
Which he wrecked. So who knows what he has now. And I get, you know what's funny about that Porsche? It's clearly like a 90s Porsche.
Yeah.
Or 80s Porsche. It's so ugly.
Yeah. No, there's a, for the most part, just going back a little bit to the art, unlike the Man of Steel one I told you about, there isn't too many tells that this is from the 80s. There are a few, though, and that definitely... There's one where in the beginning when he's coming from the airport, he's definitely wearing an 80s leather jacket.
Yeah.
Selena definitely kind of looks like 80s punk, like a Billy Idol kind of video.
Or Grace...
Grace Jones.
Yeah, Grace Jones.
Yeah,
look.
definitely. Or Eurythmics, that kind of thing. And and then there's Bruce Wayne's Porsche, which is like, no one thought that was good. You have so much money. Why are you driving that crappy Porsche?
Batman is on his way to go basically beat up Carmine Falcone. Catwoman's already there, and she's taking out a bunch of his people, scratches the shit out of Carmine's face, like to the point where he like he's in the hospital for surgery. She gets pissed because Batman gets the press for this instead of her. Like, she's really upset.
Which still happens to this day.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, because Batman was kind of pissed because he actually wasn't going to go there to beat him up. He was trying to record their conversation. That's right. That's right. And then she came busting in and ruined it all.
So then,
like a woman does.
Right.
Just ruins the guy's fun night out. Just ruined his fun night out.
That's why I like her.
Poor Andy.
She doesn't care about your man agenda.
Yeah. I got my own. And then he gets my thunder anyways. So then Jim Gordon's leaving. He gets called in to work, and he's leaving his garage and sees a guy ride by on a motorcycle. I don't know why he found this guy to be suspicious, but he did. So he turned back around and drove back in. And when he did, some Carmine Falcone and some of his thugs have got his wife, Barbara, and trying to kidnap her. And he takes out one of them, but then he gets shot in the shoulder. It turns out that Bruce Wayne on that motorcycle. Well, Jim Gordon, in the confusion of the situation, thinks he's a bad guy, turns around and shoots Bruce Wayne in the stomach or in the chest. Well, he's wearing armor underneath and gets on a bicycle. I thought this was hilarious. It's
right.
Like, oh, Bruce Wayne's riding a bicycle. Batman's riding a bicycle. You never see that.
That was pretty ballsy of Jim, though. That's, once again, I have mixed feelings as a family man. Jim knew, so the commissioner's thugs basically had Barbara and their newborn baby. And I guess they said, basically don't follow us. And they were going to blackmail him, right? Mm-hmm. And at this point, he decides they're as good as dead if I let him go. So he basically opens up fire. I was like, would you do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to kill him. Yeah. At least one of them will probably die.
Yeah.
Probably kill one and be like, so the other one, if you want them to live, now you're going to do what we want.
Right. So I guess at that point, he basically decides I'm just going to shoot all these guys and hope my family lives.
So Gordon jumps on the motorcycle that Bruce Wayne was riding
to chase his baby and everything.
Yeah, shoots out the tire. Gordon shoots out the tire, causes the car to crash on this bridge. The driver was injured, and then the guy in the back jumps out of the car holding their newborn son and tries to attack Jim Gordon with a knife. They wind up falling over the railing, all three of them, and then Bruce Wayne goes running and jumps over the edge, catches the baby, and then they land like in a muddy bank.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Wayne hands the child back to Gordon, and Gordon's basically like, without my glasses, I can't even.
Right.
He's like doing a politeness, like he can tell, he knows now who Bruce Wayne is, and or who Batman is, and so he hands the baby over. He's like, you better get out of here because the police are coming.
Right.
And then we start to see the trial, and Flass basically gives up Commissioner Loeb, and then we jump to the end of the year. This is like towards the winter, and now it's December, and Gordon's been promoted to captain. He's saying Sarah Essen is in New York doing well, I hear. Barbara's not crazy about the marriage counselor, but we're making progress. So now they're like in counsel, As for me, well, there's a real panic on. Somebody's threatened to poison the Gotham reservoir. Calls himself the Joker. I've got a friend coming who might be able to help. Should be here any minute. And then we see Batman like jumping. And that's the end of the book.
It really was a book about Commissioner Gordon and Gotham and very little about Batman. And I found it really refreshing.
I did too. I like that it's a Batman book, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the artwork in this is hands down probably my favorite artwork of any comic book I've ever read.
So I don't think we said this when we went through the book, but the very first page, I think, you can double check. It's like it shows like Batman's parents dead, like
it's like a cover page for one of the books,
and it kind of like there is like a scene like where you kind of see like how Batman's parents died, and something that I've harped on throughout all the Batman series is like, we get it, your parents dead, like like it's always the same circular thing. For me, for this book, I was actually surprised that I liked it. I liked it as much as I liked The Killing Joke, which I actually really did enjoy. Because it was a new type of, or it wasn't Batman, it was Bruce Wayne. Like it's a Batman that we've never seen before, and the character development was really good. And to what you guys have both already said as well, I really did like the art. I was like, oh, this is like, it's good.
And considering some of the other artwork from this time period, it's really clean. You can tell who the characters are. It's not weirdly exaggerated with weird muscles or humongous boobs.
Yeah.
I cannot say enough about how much I love the artwork. I really wish, to be perfectly honest, that Batman Begins, the movie, had taken more inspiration from this and had excised out some of the unnecessary stuff like the Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, and the whole thing in the Himalayas.
Because what makes this book work is what they put back into the movie. They figured, okay, we need to see his training montage. We need to have a big bad guy, not the corrupt commissioner in a corrupt city as the bad guy. We have to have this guy want to blow up Gotham City and everything like that. And those are the elements I didn't like about Batman Begins. And this is really, you can clearly see even from the very last panel that Batman Begins took a lot of that. I mean, there's a whole thing with the Joker card at the end of the Batman Begins.
Yeah.
So basically, Batman Begins tries to be this, but I feel like it tried to make too much over the top stuff with an ultimate bad guy. Maybe you need that for a movie, but what I loved about this was the corrupt city that Gordon and Bruce Wayne were fighting was really the bad guy.
Okay, so I have a question. I've been very confused about this. It says Batman Year 1.
Uh-huh.
Is that it, or is there like Year 2, Year 3?
No,
that's what I was like.
Batman: The Long Halloween is supposed to like spiritually be his second year as Batman. But that one's horribly drawn. That is one of the ugliest fucking comic books I've ever read. But it's much, much thicker than this, and it's you start to see that one's almost a Harvey Dent story because someone's fucking with Harvey Dent.
And so, yeah, actually, it's funny you bring that up. Is that the Long Halloween and a few other ones that come to mind are the Batman ones that are quintessential stories, but I do not like the art. It's weird. It's
like someone drew.
They're caricatures. They don't look.
Yeah.
The coloring in this reminded me of the Killing Joke. It kind of had the similar look and feel to it.
The coloring for this has been updated for this volume.
Oh, me. Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you look at the original, it's almost like the Killing Joke, where it's not like the version you had that has the Like Dennis has that. Yeah, like the old one didn't have those hyper colors. This one's been color corrected too.
Well, what I do like about the coloring on this one is it's flat. It's not. There's something about it that I don't know. It makes it seem simple.
Yeah. Well, even the line work is really. It's like rounded at the end. It doesn't.
Johnny likes round lines.
Yeah,
I do.
And
I don't know how he like. I used to illustrate a lot, and I've been looking at this for years. I'm like, how did he do this? Was it with a paintbrush or
this is pre-computers?
Yeah, or was it with a nib, or did he? I really don't know. Like, I'm not sure how he did the line work on this. It's beautiful.
And honestly, I mean, as a kid when I read this, I didn't really compare them, and it didn't click with me for whatever reason. But now as an adult, I really like how un-Frank Miller this story is. I don't know. There's certain once you've read Sin City and The Dark Knight Returns, there's a certain kind of Frank Miller-ness about it.
Well, it's almost like George Lucas and then Irvin Kushner doing Empire Strikes Back, where you handed it off to someone else, and the look was so different. I mean, it's still. Anyways, that's just my comparison. Is like
you guys know, like when you go to a party and people start talking, and you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about. This, like when we do like the Batman or like Marvel, this is me. Like
I'm just saying the writing for me didn't seem. I don't know. There's something about Frank Miller that I like, but also don't sometimes.
Oh, and yeah, he can be really racist and misogynistic.
Right, and for whatever reason, it didn't seem too hard-boiled and over the top. The writing just felt really grounded. I don't know if it was because Gordon was the main focus, but I didn't feel. I don't know. I felt like it was a really well-written story. Despite the fact that it was written by Frank Miller, if that sounds right.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank Miller sometimes is too much for me. Even if I love The Dark Knight Returns, sometimes it's way too Frank Miller for me.
Yeah.
Would you recommend this book, Johnny?
I definitely would.
Highly recommended on my part.
What about you, Francis?
Yeah. I mean, I recommend it.
Sorry.
I mean, like, I wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah.
But,
well,
and I didn't.
See it for the cats.
Yeah. But, no, I did like it. I was surprised how much I like it. There's certain books when we read, I just kind of go in like, okay, let me get this over with. And I had full intention of skimming this. Like, I'll get this done in 15 minutes.
It reads real fast.
Yeah, but I didn't skim it. I actually did read.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, it was good.
Cool. All right. Well, Frankie, where can people follow you?
On Instagram at Words in Waffles.
And Dennis Supachana.
IG, the podcast's IG and Twitter are at GN Explorers Club.
And then if you guys want to follow me, I don't know any of my stuff. So
Serious Talk, seriously.
Oh, yeah. Serious Talk Twit for Instagrams. All right. Thank you for listening. And thank you for waiting out and coming back for our third season. We really appreciate that. And we'll be back next week.
Bye.